Hello everyone, Santaduck2 and welcome to another mod overview, this time on Conduit, a mod that adds the Conduit, Buried Treasure, Heart of the Sea and Nautilus Shells. The mod does differ though in 1.13 in certain ways when it comes to treasure maps, lack of drowned and using guardians to add the Nautilus shell drops, and yeah. Certain other things like effects and animations are also not present. So, if you happen to come across a buried treasure chest, it'll usually be on land, possibly underwater. I'll have to look a bit more off camera. But the one thing I have found that is really cool, unless it just happened to be the case with dead bush spawning here, is that typically in 1.13 you would have a red cross or X, and you only kind of had an idea where it was. And if you went into spectator like me sometimes to go about it, if you didn't want to have to constantly shovel all the time, sometimes if it was a lot higher up when digging through the island, it was not too bad, but if it was a lot deeper, or it was a lot further down underwater, or it was almost at the borderline of the sand and gravel, it could be sometimes tricky. The dead bush does make things a lot easier. I don't know, however, if it actually spawns things underwater, whether it spawns the dead bush underwater with it, and if it's only restricted to on land, or somewhat closer to the shoreline, but it seems to be that, yeah, dead bush spawns above there, which is really nice. You should have a chance, obviously, of Heart of the Sea or a Nautilus shell, but there is some chances of prismarine crystals, and raw fish, a material, a metal of some kind, and a tag. Probably best to check the equivalent to actual treasure chests, just in case, as it could range. Actually, that's the wrong one. Actually, yeah, it's the right one. So, go between these as much as you want, obviously. Comparison. Obviously you can make a conduit with a Nautilus shell and Heart of the Sea from obviously finding it in a chest or from defeating guardians, which I happen to have lost the egg from somehow. With a conduit you can make a structure with any of the 3 different prismarines and not even finishing the structure. So if you happen to have a fair amount of the prismarine blocks there, and a fair amount of the structure built, it'll start giving off particle effects rather than the animation you'd expect. It does, however, give you night vision and water breathing. It doesn't give you Dolphin's Grace or a speed effect to replace that, so it's another aspect to the mod that, like with the Guardians, giving you Nautilus shells and no drowned. It's a thing you'll need to consider, as the 1.13 version doesn't add that, and this mod compensates with adding those additions. So, if we actually go out, you can also see how far it applies the radius. I'm pretty sure it's equivalent to the second radius, possibly, of a beacon. Sorry, second tier of a beacon's radius, at a guess. Another thing when placing the conduit is that when you place it, if you place anything else there, block will consume it. And also as well, if you just place the conduit, it won't actually work on its own if it's placed on the sides. You want to place it in the middle as much as possible. If I remove that block, it should update. So it needs to not be touching anything else at all. That should be enough for a smaller version of the structure. Now if I happen to apply it to other positions, just to see if the other additions to the structure actually improves the radius, we'll see. Just so that you can tell whether or not you'll be wasting more blocks or not. Which it seems to be that it may or may not matter with adding additional blocks. It is only just for space, so you can easily access it if you want to go about the structure like this, which is the typical one, with adding it on all the different sides, compared to this one where I've just got a lot more spaces, and that one obviously it's a lot less with the rings. I don't know if this actually works in 1.13, where more blocks or rings expanded. You have to check the wiki for that. Otherwise though, we'll actually try spawning some guardians to see our Nautilus shell chances, which I think it took me about 4 of them last time, including 3. But we'll see, so you can get an idea. So, nothing there yet. I have to keep trying. Not as lucky as I was last time, it seems. But they definitely do drop it. So make sure to have one of everything in each. Just let my inventory on purpose for that. Doesn't seem to want to drop for me this time, but it definitely does work. I'm definitely aware of that, because I have tested it. Just doesn't want to happen right now, unfortunately. Which is really annoying. Either way though, thanks so much for watching, and goodbye.